I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands I live on. I pay my respects to the Kaurna people, elders past and present, and honour their ongoing traditions. Welcome to the Mind Body Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Clark. Here I talk about all things mind and body and how this relates to ourselves and our parenting. I envision a world where children are seen and heard and parents feel supported and less alone. Join me here in the power of story, expert knowledge and lived experiences. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Mind Body Parenting Podcast. I'm Shelley Clark and today I am talking with Marion Rose. Marion is the creator of the Marion Method, and today we're going to hear all about that and all about her wonderful work and have a chat. So hi, welcome Marion.
Hello, lovely Shelley. So glad to be here.
Thank you. It's so lovely to talk with you. You're probably going to be my first guest on my podcast, which is so special for me actually, because, you know, listeners might not know, obviously, you've been a mentor of mine now for 5 years, I think, and I have loved all of the work that you put out in the world and have learned so much from you. So it's such an honor to, be able to chat with you today and for you to come onto my podcast and share your wisdom with everyone. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Seems like a next step in the journey, doesn't it? So yummy. I'm so excited to listen to the rest of your podcast and see who you're going to have on here.
Yeah, thank you. So tell me, or tell the listeners a little bit more about you and how you've come to be doing this work. And I know we were talking about it before we started. You're like, oh, what am I going to say? Just a snapshot or the bits that stand out today, whatever you feel called to share.
I was just needing to calculate how long I've been fascinated in consciousness for. I think it's about, I'd say 34 years now, since I was 19. I've been really wanting to understand human beings and consciousness and why we are the way we are, and why at that age I was quite unhappy. I had a lot of self-judgment. I was very anxious. So it was really that journey of exploration. And what I'm really grateful for is that inner journey of understanding myself and why I was the way I was, and helping myself feel much more basically happy and fulfilled, and having a really loving inner dialogue paralleled this professional journey that I went on at the same time. So I did a degree in psychology and a PhD and a postdoctoral fellowship, and was a university lecturer. And at the same time, I trained as a psychosynthesis psychotherapist, which is where we met originally. Yeah. So that was my 20s, and then my 30s, I got into birth and hypnobirthing, calm birth, aware parenting, nonviolent communication, and then see, I'm really going fast. See, I'm going to the decades, and then I kind of wanted to integrate all these things that I'd learned. So that's really where the Marion Method came about, this wanting to integrate all of that knowledge that I'd learned, not only on my own internal journey, my own journey of going from a highly anxious person who never spoke to someone who feels quite calm and relaxed most of the time, and is willing and able to speak, and has an inner, I'm talking about myself in the third person. My inner dialogue's really compassionate, and I really want to support other people to do that. And in particular, as you know, I become passionate actually going from much more of a therapy understanding of looking at families and family systems to actually much more a social and cultural framework. So, I talk a lot about the disconnected domination culture, and that's what I'm really passionate about now, to support people to see that, yes, we get hurt in the families that we grow up in, but the families we grow up in are so deeply and profoundly affected by the culture and the time, the place that we grow up in. And I'm actually so passionate now, and I think the time is ripe for us not only to change. I'm I'm not interested in supporting people to change to fit into the system. I'm passionate about supporting people to get free from the disconnected domination culture that we internalize, so that we can all be part of changing the system and co-creating a more life-enhancing, loving and powerful system.
So beautiful and so powerful. I know that your work has changed my life, and it's changed many mothers and parents and other people that come across your work, because it is so, and I think I've said this to you before, I don't know too many, I've done lots of other trainings in other things, and your work and your knowledge and depth of knowledge covers so many different layers and bigger pictures, that it's just so all encompassing, right from the very mental thinking, analytical kind of studies, right down to really the embodied practices and processes that you've developed, and then going outwards and seeing that bigger picture of the cultural conditioning and the disconnected domination culture. I just find it such a beautiful paradigm to work from, and I love it. And so thank you for all of your years and years of study, and then being, integrating it into the Marion Method, and really distilling these practices down into things that are tangible ways that parents can, and mothers and people you work with can practice this in a daily way. Yes. So
yeah, I love what you say, Shelley, about the practical, tangible practices. And I was actually writing about the inner loving presence process this morning, and I was reflecting back in my 20s when I was, at the time it was called the New Age, and I was reading all these books basically about self-love and to love yourself more. And I was like, and I was reading, I read many, like tens and hundreds of these books. I was like, well, I don't seem to yet be more self-loving. How on earth do I actually do this? Yeah. So that's one of my passions, is to attend to as many of the different layers and levels as I can, so that they are embodied practices that we can actually use in our day-to-day lives in any moment. Okay, can I do a willingness practice here? What do I really want? Do I need to connect in with my inner loving presences? How do I feel? What's the conversation with life? That these are really practical things that help us. So that it's not just maps and models. It's practical things that we can use that make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to say, I don't know if you can hear my dog in the background. So if people can hear my dog, I can hear him kind of like, not yelping. He's just kind of in the background there moping. So if people can hear that, that's my dog. His name's Banjo. He's a little border collie poodle, and he's about 2 years old. So he might bark. I can kind of hear him, but
I don't hear him. And as we know, there'll be, I'm sure, messages from life. What are you saying? He's barking. Did you say moping?
He's sort of like, he's almost crying actually, which is really interesting. Oh, there he is. So, and this is really a good segue into like what your work is. And would you like to talk to more about conversations with life, or which bit do you want to start with?
Yeah. So there are three main elements of the work. There's love, will, and conversations with life. And actually, I was wondering whether this is conversations with life, because in this work, in any session, in any interaction, Zoom doesn't work if the dog's whining. We don't go, it's not about, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like life, we are interconnected, and at all times life is communicating with us, and we are communicating with life. And I call life with a capital L. Other people might say the universe, or God, or essence, or whatever.
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature, So it's really the consciousness of all is that's constantly happening. So there are no, when things apparently are going awry in a podcast or a meeting or a session, the wonderfulness is we get to include all of it. But actually, I was wondering whether it might be a little bit more about the love element. We talk about love hurts, and I'm sure your listeners know, but Shelley, you're a certified Marion Method mentor. You were the first person to get certified. So you know all of this as much as I do.
I do.
So I'm thinking, and just because I also was just looking at Instagram before we started this podcast and I saw a calf being taken away from its mother. So and then I hear you say banjo's crying, probably wants to be with you. So I'm wondering if life wants to communicate something about love hurts and about the disconnected domination culture being based on trying to separate particularly children and families, mothers and babies, that really the disconnected domination culture really thrives on separating out families. And most Indigenous cultures feel this deep sense of oneness with all of life, and they get to usually, children get to hang out with their parents. It's a family system. We live close to we would have lived close to the land, close to the seasons, like everything. And so much of this culture is based on separating us out from that matrix as mother, not matrix like the matrix, but matrix as mother. And in the way I see it, that's what happened originally. We got separated out, and that's where then the will part, which is when we feel separated and isolated and we have a lot of love hurts because we don't feel deeply interconnected with all of that that's when the whole powerlessness and power over thing shifts in. So in terms of the culture, that's why we've become that's the domination part. The disconnection part is what came first, in my belief, and then came domination, which is the capacity to power over others. But the separation from love, from our interconnected nature, is what comes first, and then the power over comes second.
I love that. And actually, as you're speaking, Banjo barked a couple of times at, like, when you were talking about the separation, and then when you were talking about the power. And so there was, like, that's when he's like, yes, and also yes. And I'm also wondering if I might just go and get him, actually, and bring him in here. I have a real sense of, like, when you're saying about separation and, communication, life communicating with us and conversations with life, that I'm like, oh, he's outside, maybe he actually wants to come in and be next to me here. So I might go and do that.
Okay, let's see how it goes. Including, what do we get to include the animal beings and then
yes, including. Anyway, I'll just go, and which I think is a really interesting point for me, because I've definitely come from a place of it's got to be perfect and right and all in order, and really, a harsh inner voice of, it's got to be right. And I would normally be, and it's nice to reflect on, actually, that I would been going, oh my God, and be really anxious about Banjo making noises. But actually, the thing I love the most about the conversations with life is that it takes that kind of anxiety out, because then rather than worrying about what I've done wrong or this and being perfect and all the things, that I actually go, oh, what's this trying to communicate with me right now? And oh, it's this, and I go and do that, and then it changes. And it's just this beautiful way of being in the world. So we can talk a little bit more about conversations with life. I will just go and grab him, and then I will.
When you come back, I'd love to respond to that bit that you said there. So I'll keep it in my mind.
Yes, I'll be 2 seconds. I'll keep that running. Wow, I'm back. He's here next to me. We'll see how that goes.
Hello, Banjo.
Hi. Which actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I've got another thing I'd talk about with the dog.
Well, so that's what I wanted to say. From a pre-disconnected domination culture or post-disconnected domination culture, like, everything's included. There isn't the shame and the self-judgment and there's something wrong with this situation. Like, so the disconnected domination culture is based on, it has to be a certain way. If I'm not doing it that way, it's wrong, or I'm wrong. It's the shame, embarrassment, all of that stuff, which actually then gets in the way of saying, wow, what are the beautiful messages here? What is life communicating to me? I'm in this amazing flow of life. And it's such a profound shift, isn't it? As you say, from, I remember in earlier days, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong, or what will people think, or whatever, it should be this way. And to actually go, it all gets to be included with it. And whether that's running a workshop or a podcast or a session, Like rather than I'm doing something wrong, which is, profoundly affected so many people in this culture, to I'm here with life and what's life communicating to me. And I feel the relaxation of my body when I connect with that, compared to, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What will people think? I mean, it's a completely different sense in the body. And we get to live from that more and more and more, the more we trust these conversations with life.
Yes. And trust is probably one of the big pieces that that's really shifted for me with all of this work over the last 5 years, is really deeply trusting myself and trusting my children and trusting, life. And yeah, it's been a huge change. The other thing I was going to say around like including Banjo is, and he's just now sitting here at my feet, is that he has shown me so many, like, yes, he's a dog, but he's very much part of everything and part of our family. And he senses our nervous systems. He senses how we're all feeling, and he wants to be a part of it and doesn't want to be separate either. And so it's been a wonderful process to see what he's bringing us, just like our children bring us things too. So and now he's okay. He's not, making any noise. And so tell me a little bit more. You talked about love hurts, and that the process around love and will and conversations with life are the 3 elements of the Marion Method. Tell me more a little bit about each of those. So the love and love hurts. And I know this, but it's more for, it's more just explaining that for people that have never heard about your work and never heard about, these elements and how we can use them in everyday life.
Yes, so love is really based on the whole model's based on the torus, like the toroidal field, so like the donuts, that is apparently the basis of just so much. So in the torus, our true nature is love. So as souls, our true nature is love and will. So the love element of that is that we have love need. We all have love needs, and our love needs are the ways that our innate interconnectedness and lovingness are honored. So that includes, being let in if we're a dog, or getting to sleep close when we're a baby, getting to be held when we're a child, having hugs when we're an adult, whatever our love needs are. And love needs are things like for empathy, for compassion, for inclusion, for to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be appreciated, all of those kinds of things. And to whatever extent we don't get those love needs met, which we often don't in the disconnected domination culture. So I learned the term domination culture from Marshall Rosenberg, who invented MVC, who have been deeply influenced by. He learned it from Walter Wink, I believe. But for me, it's not just enough to call it the domination culture, because domination is the power over part. To me, it's the disconnected domination culture, which, so the disconnection relates to love and the domination relates to will.
Yeah.
So the disconnected domination culture is based on separation as much as possible. And, we can see it in the world at the moment so much. The DD culture wants to divide people, wants to create distrust and judgment of others, and a sense that we are different from others as much as possible. It thrives. The DD culture thrives on separation, and so much of that comes through the thinking and thought forms of this culture, the judgment, the guilt, the othering, all of that stuff. So we all have many love hurts. All of us who've grown up in this culture, which is basically pretty much any English speaking culture is a DD culture, because it got spread around by colonization. But the way we can heal love hurts, and I'm really grateful to Letha Salter, who created Aware Parenting, for this understanding. One of the main ways when we're a baby or a child is through crying, through expressing grief and sadness through tears, but not alone, with loving support. And as adults, it includes similarly just, to have our feelings heard, to express the grief and the loss and the mourning of not having our innate interconnectedness honored. And basically, in terms of that Taurus, our true nature as love, the more our love needs are met, and the more we get to release those love hurts, and the more we get to replace our internalized judgment and shaming and all of that cultural conditioning with compassionate and loving voices, the more we live our life as love. So as the love element of our true nature. So that's the love part.
Yep. Yeah. Amazing. And I just wanted to add in there around, I think the love needs and understanding love needs, but also understanding our love hurts, and then having a place for them to be heard and held by another loving, another caring person has been one of the biggest changes for me. I think I access and feel more love in just everyday life because I've had a lot of those love hurts, heard and I've felt them and listened to, and then the practices have almost like filled that back up with love, and it is just so powerful. So I'm so grateful for your awareness around and bringing in from so many different other teachings and other people, but really distilling it down to what we need, and then also recognizing when it's a hurt and when we need to express that hurt through tears. And it's so powerful.
And I think the other thing I find really helpful is I know for myself is before I'd done much inner healing, I used to live from my younger parts. I lived from the hurt younger parts and the cultural conditioning. So 99% of the time I was feeling anxious or judging myself or feeling alienated, all this kind of stuff. And what happens over time is through receiving love from our outer loving presence is also the practices in the love element are connecting with our inner loving presences. So gradually over time, we connect with our inner loving mother and inner loving father and inner best friend and inner loving sibling and inner beloved and inner loving money and inner loving whoever you want to have present and loving. And there's a process called the inner loving presence process where we go back in time. So at any point, if we're having really big feelings, it usually means there's a younger part of us here. And so we can go back in a little time machine, as you know very well, Shelley, and you facilitated many people through. We go back and we really, really listen to those younger parts, or often our inner loving presences do, and they get to say what they never got to say. They get to be heard in the way they've never been heard before. They get to hear and receive what they didn't ever experience. And that's part of the process where over time, instead of identifying mostly from the younger parts, from the cultural conditioning, from all the things we needed to do, which were wonderful at the time, to fit in, to belong, to be loved, to be safe, the adaptive processes and mechanisms is increasingly we start to live from our true nature, our soul self, which is love and will. So we feel generally just more happy more of the time. We feel more centered, we feel more loving towards ourselves and others. That's our true state, and the fundamental sense, as well as powerful, which is the will part. My experience of life is from 99% of the time in really painful places to, I would say, 95% of the time feeling this just kind of natural, quite joyful, really. And it's not spiritual bypassing. It includes listening to what shows up and loving it, but it's like living from that who we really are, rather than from being identified with the hurts and the younger parts and the cultural conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you say around, because I've sensed that too in my own body. Like I just feel more at ease and more at peace with everyday things. And yes, things do come up, but having these processes really is powerful to move through what it is that's coming up for me. I don't want to say quicker, but much in a way that allows for that to come up and space. But I'm not stuck in that younger part, or stuck in those sort of feelings, or even then my thoughts creating more of those feelings and being kind of stuck in this anxiety for days, or however long it might have been. You talked about being in the younger parts and the inner loving presence processes. If someone hadn't ever heard about this before, how do we know we're coming from a younger part? What does that kind of feel like for you? Because I know what it feels like for me, but I love hearing it from other people as well. And then what would you do?
Yes. So for me, it's usually the sense of being quite overwhelmed with feelings, or the feelings are really big, basically, and they're usually out of proportion to the present situation. I usually have some sense of it's always been like this, and these feelings and thoughts have always been there and always will be. It's like that kind of immersion. So basically, we're identified with, we're immersed in an experience as if it were happening now. Those are the kinds of things. Also, I think the more I live from like my soul, love and will self, it's just anything that isn't that. It's just clearly. Whereas before, it's like, oh, hang on, is this about the past? You know, of course, when we're starting, it's like, I don't know, is this me now or the past? Whereas now, it's so clear, because it's like, oh my God, I'm feeling really scared or really outraged or really, and of course these can be real feelings in the here and now. There are times to be really scared and really outraged and grief stricken. But if we are feeling outraged when, I don't know, an ant climbs over a toe or something like that, so that's probably a younger part. It's probably not about the here and now. And again, I'm really grateful. I learned so much of this from Alita Salter and aware parenting, and also practicing that with my children, to go, to really differentiate and understand the difference between here and now feelings and feelings that are from the past.
Yeah. One of the things that I work with parents a lot with is that they'll say, but I don't know where this is coming from, or I don't, how do I know that these are feelings from another time or what? And I think the more we look through this lens and have this understanding and practice it, it's just through our own practice that we get that sense. Because for me, I now know when it's a bigger reaction, much bigger reaction to actually what's happening in the moment, I know that it's a younger, it's coming from a younger part. And then before, you mentioned asking how old you are. So what would be the process?
Like apologies, you did ask. You asked me.
No, that's okay.
Well, so the inner loving processes is a whole set of processes where, first of all, to connect in with an inner loving presence. So the idea being just like if a child is crying and upset, that healing cannot happen if they're on their own. We need either an inner loving presence or outer loving presence with us when we're feeling these feelings from the past. So it might be, first of all, connecting with inner loving mother, which will usually mean, well, depending on the situation, but if I can, I'm in a position where I can close my eyes and I can put one hand on my forehead and the other hand around my torso, and she can say, I'm right here with you, sweetheart. And I connect with my breathing every time I say that. I'm right here with you, sweetheart. I'm listening. I hear that you're upset. And already there's that sense of presencing feelings to be expressed in a way that leads to relief and release and healing. We need loving presence. And the wonderful thing is, we do need that externally first. As babies, as children, we need that externally. And as adults, we usually need that externally because we haven't received it. So we need to experience what that's like. We need to hear the words. We need to experience that from someone else. And then over time, we gradually internalize it like we would have done as a younger child. And then we go through a whole set of processes, which is, what are you thinking, and what are you feeling, and what are you needing, and what do you want to say, and what do you want to hear, and so on. But each time, getting to say those to either that inner or outer loving presence. So we're getting to actually do what we didn't do the first time around, which to me is why things keep showing up. And this is, and I love about this map, is like, rather than judging ourselves when big feelings show up from the past, it's like, this is how our psyche is designed to work. It's those younger parts are going, will you hear me this time? Please hear me this time. Can you give me a different experience this time? Because that last time was really terrible.
Yes. And it's so powerful, I think. And I just want to say there, because I know, well, for me personally, my parents probably listen to the podcast, and I've had this conversation with them around, our parents gave us we had a lovely childhood and they gave us all the things that they could do for us. And it's just we didn't know about this. And that's that disconnected domination culture. So for those listening and thinking, well, I had a great childhood, or my parents gave me these things, they loved us. They gave us all this, like, what they knew. We just know more now. And often we know more about the disconnected domination culture and the culture we grew up in. And so I just wanted to say that when we talk about reparenting and talk about doing our own work on the things that we didn't get it as a child, all of us have things that we, needs that weren't met as a child. No matter how loving and caring and understanding our parents were, there's always something from, an experience with friends or at school or, wherever it might be. So I just wanted to sort of note that this isn't about what our parents didn't give us or anything like that. It's about understanding that we all have needs that weren't met. And the more we can be aware of where these feelings are coming from and offering, either getting the love from the outer loving presence or our inner loving processes, that's when we can really move through that and heal.
Yeah, I love that it's really not blaming of parents. It's really understanding that they're exactly the product of the disconnected domination culture and the time that they grew up in. That if we'd grown up in that time in the family they did, we probably would have, of course we're different because we're a different soul, but we would have been affected in the same ways. And each generation gets this opportunity to heal, to receive more love and more power.
I love that. And so speaking of power, do you want to talk a little bit about will and the willingness part? So that's the lovingness part. So first there's the love bit where we're loving all parts of us, all feelings, compassion and empathy. We're listening to younger parts. We're reparenting, that's the love part. And then you mentioned power.
So will is the thing that I remember when I first started training in psychosynthesis, which is a psychospiritual psychotherapy. They used to talk about love and will all the time. And even though I studied it and I did how many years of training, 6 or 8, I can't remember, a lot of years of training. The will I still really just didn't get. I was like, I've got this in a thinky way, I understand it, but I don't really. Yeah. And so I'm grateful for the people I learned from, because I learned these things from Aware Parenting about how children need agency and autonomy and choice. And then I learned about, in nonviolent communication, about this beautiful question, are you willing? And about the domination culture and about coercion and guilt and shoulds. And then I did this other thing, which was the Field Project by Philip Gollabach. I also trained there as a mentor and coach, and I learned all about the power of our willingness and how our willingness, our life with a capital L, responds to our willingness. So, which in some places is called, like manifestation, that kind of stuff. Although there's a lot of differences to manifestation, but the idea that our consciousness it's a two-way conversation. It's not just life telling us stuff. We are constantly conversing with life, whether we know it or not, and profoundly impacting what shows up. So these 3 things from these amazing different modalities, which I'm so grateful to each of, to Aletha and to Marshall and to Philip. But I saw this, oh my gosh, this will thing, I'm going to weave some of those threads and some of those ones and some of those ones into this map and model, which is in the Taurus, the central channel is our willingness channel. And that is where really, look, the kookaburras are coming out. They love, the kookaburras are laughing because they love this. There's joy here. So the willingness channel is where really the unmanifest comes into form. It's where our soul speaks and comes into form. It's where life speaks to us. It's where we bring, we could say, spirit into matter. And it's how we connect with the life force of the universe. And that may sound a bit wishy-washy. So that's a bit of a stick, wasn't it? Judgment stick. Let's go. That doesn't sound wishy-washy.
Powerful.
It might sound a bit esoteric. That was the word I'm looking for. So if we were to go to practical terms, what does this actually mean? Well, will hurts are the places where, do you remember love hurts? I know you know this, but listeners, our love hurts are where our innate interconnectedness isn't honored. Our will hurts are where our innate uniqueness isn't honored. So the will hurts include their needs for agency and autonomy and for choice, most of all for power, for really for that uniqueness that we each have, which shows up right from in utero. We talk a lot about this around birth and a baby, when the baby knows when it wants to be born and when it's ready to be born, when it's willing to be born. You know, a baby knows if it's being spoon fed, for example. I know a lot of people don't do spoon feeding now, they do baby lid weaning. But anyway, back in those days, you know, the baby will, the toddler will turn its head. If it doesn't want food, the baby will turn its head. The toddler who's saying no, at every age and stage, our will is our yeses and nos. It's our slug wisdom. It's our innate wisdom that we know, just like a little slug that moves forwards when it has a yes for something. There's this embodied wisdom that we each have about what is a yes for us and what is a no for us. And the disconnected domination culture whacks the hell out of that innate wisdom and that innate power. And why that's so powerful is when we are truly with our embodied yes, that is what life responds to. So when we have, I am so willing for this with every fiber of our being, and we can do that through the willingness practice, or through, which is basically just returning to our innate. We would have all had this. We didn't grow up in the disconnected domination culture. When we have a full body yes, life is free to bring that to us. That is why it's so important. And the same with an embodied no, which I call the neo no. When we have an, I am not willing for this, it has a really powerful impact on what shows up in our life. But basically, the disconnected domination culture, it many times in our lives as babies, as children, we don't get our needs for choice met. We get told you have to do this and you should do this, and we get overpowered, and we get coerced, and over and over and over again, most of us tens of thousands of times. Especially if we went to a mainstream school, we would have had that
all
a lot.
The time.
If you're a parent and you're going, but oh my God, what about my child? And the wonderful thing is, we come, just like with love hurts, we come with an innate capacity to heal from those will hurts. Again, thanks to Aletha Salter and Aware Parenting for this, is through the healthy expression of outrage, through raging, not with aggression, not with hitting or biting or throwing or taking, and as an adult, not with blame or judgment of the other, but through a clear expression of the rage, which is our beautiful, natural, healthy will energy that has not been expressed. The no, which we innately have, and we would innately have as if we hadn't got it bashed out of us, or shamed, or punished, or be a good girl, or be quiet, or just do what you said, or be nice, all that stuff from the disconnected domination culture. And what happens when we hear those things thousands of times, or however many there are, our will channel, our willingness channel gets silted up. And if it's silted up, our will energy is not flowing as freely. So we may feel depressed, we may feel depleted, we may feel lacking in, that capacity to bring our dreams into the world. We may have a lot of I can't, or I shouldn't, or so basically, the more the willingness channel gets silted for us, which all happened for all of us, because not only we didn't have our will needs met, but we didn't get to have that beautiful, healthy expression of when, to heal from the will hurts. We then don't have that free-flowing willingness channel, which means we might want something till the cows come home, but we are often not willing to have it because we're scared that we'll get hurt, we'll get shamed, or we'll get punished, or we judge ourselves. All again, disconnected domination culture does not want us to realize how powerful we are, and not just in a physical energy power, but an understanding that we are interconnected with all of life. And if we stand in our I am willing for this, or I am not willing for this, life responds to that on a deeply esoteric and practical way. Have a lot of people around like that, the DD culture is not going to thrive. It's going to collapse, which again, I think in these times we are living in, to me, the DD culture is coming out of hiding. Like, it's been around for 3,500 years, but it's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. It's to me, I see it a bit like when you're a child and you have a bit of paper and you paint with like lemon juice, and then you paint over the top and you can see
Yeah.
It's being revealed. And
Mm.
I think now more than ever, it's really important for us to be looking at our will hurts and healing our will hurts and getting to know the difference between the beautiful, healthy expression of those in that raw, in that no, rather than in aggression or blame or judgment or, you know, all those other things which only fuel the DD culture.
Yeah. Wow.
That was cool, wasn't it? I like it. Thank you for
Amazing.
listening. I liked getting to talk, to share that.
I am just like, I actually feel that in my body, and I feel that right through my heart, right through that willingness channel that you're talking about. I feel that power as you talk about it. And I love hearing that. You know, I've done a whole years and years of worth, you know, listening to you, but just hearing it again in a really potent, powerful, this is what the willingness work is. And this is the channel, and hearing about it, you know, so many adults are actually not at all in touch with their willingness, because it's been silted over with all these hurts, and they don't actually know what they want or what makes them happy or what brings them joy or what they want to do with their life. And I think the thing I love so much about this is that the willingness work for me has been so powerful in, you know, listening to a lot of those feelings and outrage, and the times that I didn't get to choose things, or the times that I was told, you know, I was no good at something, and then I believed it, and actually I really want to do that, and having all of those love hurts but then also will hurts listened to, you know, it creates huge change. And I then love this even more because we can see it as we're parenting our own children, and that they actually innately are very connected to their willingness channel as children. They know what they need, and they know what brings them joy. They know, my son knows that he loves getting dinosaurs and animals and going out in the mud and playing for an hour where he plays in his own little world. He, like, you know, children are very connected to their embodied in the present moment. And actually we aren't as adults. We've had that.
Yeah, only because of the culture. We're designed to stay in contact with that the whole of our lives, and perhaps even get it more nuanced. But yeah, yes.
And many of us aren't, because we just haven't had that experience of having that nurtured and trusted. And I love the willingness practice because it comes back to that. It helps us reconnect back into our soul's calling, what we're here for, what our purpose is. And so tell me a little bit about the willingness practice.
So yeah, I love what you said there, because it reminds me that, again, the willingness practice is something we wouldn't need if we didn't grow up with a disconnected domination culture, because we just do it. And that's what happens over time as we do more and more of this work, is they become just embodied again, so that we actually don't need to be doing so much practices and processes. We are just living our lives. Yeah. So that's the whole point of them in the end. So the willingness practice always starts with what we really want, which, as you said, often even that can be really hard for people, especially if we've been shamed for wanting something. Or again, in the DD cultures, often, you know, who are you to want that? Or you can't have what you want, or you shouldn't want that, or you're greedy, or all the judgment, the shame that we got around just wanting what we wanted as children. So often that in itself is a big process. And then there's a big difference between wanting and willingness. And again, I want to appreciate Philip Golubach from the Field Project, where I really learned this from, is that we can want something till the cows come home, but wanting does not equal willingness, because it's that embodied, full-bodied yes or no. And often if we want something, again, because of the ways we've been hurt and because of the ways we've been conditioned, there are all kinds of other places in us that aren't willing. So it's, again, a very embodied practice. There's a whole set of questions we go through, so that basically what we're doing is including all the parts that haven't been willing. So this isn't like, it's very different from like affirmations or The Secret or any of that kind of stuff, which can often be, again, no judgment of that. But the difference being that this is really radically self-honest, it's truthful, and it's about not bypassing any younger parts or any hurt parts or any conditioned parts. It's about including all of those. And often if we're not willing, I often say it's because we need more love. It's often because there are parts of us have really good reasons for not being willing to have the partner that we want, or to have the relationship with our children that we want, or to have the money that we want, or to make the website without it crashing all the time, or to do exercise every day, or to eat healthy food, or whatever are the bazillion things that we might want to do, because there are other places in us that need to be lovingly heard. So basically, the more we hear those, either again with our outer loving presence or inner loving presences, the more we come to a full-bodied yes, which is when someone can say to us, are you really willing for that? And with our whole body, we say, yes, I am absolutely willing. And it's every single part in us. And there's a joy, and there's a yesness, there's a fullness, there's an expansion. And that's when our willingness channel is flowing. And that's when life can be free to bring that to us. Whereas if we go, but I really want it, and I want it, and yeah, I'm really willing to have it, and yeah, really willing. So we're not willing. We're fighting life, and life doesn't want to bring us stuff that we're not willing for, because it knows the reasons why we're not yet willing. It's protecting us.
Yes. When I first heard you talk about this, I could sort of get it in my mind, but it wasn't until I actually just started doing the practices that I saw it happening, and it would unfold, where I would want my website, or I would want to do something, even just printing a form off, but the printer wasn't working. And then I would actually check in with my willingness and think, well, am I willing for this to happen? Well, I am, sort of.
which is not
a real no, it's not a full body yes. But then I'd go, well, but if I print this off, and if this actually happens, well, then, then I would have to step out into the world, and then someone might see me, and the fear that comes up. So then loving those little bits of fear that come up, and then going, it's okay, it's safe here, I love you, having any of my inner loving presences come in, or whatever it needs to be heard, I would offer that love to myself. And then next minute, the thing that wasn't working on my printer, and I changed nothing, I just clicked it again, and next minute it's printing, or next minute all of a sudden I'm now logged into the thing that I couldn't do before. So, and it's happened a few times with Instagram or Facebook, and clearly I wasn't willing to then go on and share the thing, but then I did a bit of a practice, did a willingness practice, offered myself love, and then all of a sudden I can get into the thing. And amazing. That's life responding to our willingness. But I've seen that now over and over and over again, that you just know that this is how it just happens.
It's magical, isn't it? I've had that so many times as an entrepreneur, and before I really understood this work, and before I was embodying it in this way, so I'd get so frustrated and things wouldn't work, and I'd be creating courses. And once I really started practicing this, so many times I've had exactly the same as you, be like doing something and it's not working, and then just do some willingness work and do the same thing, and it completely works. Same with cars, same with parenting. I really realized that how many times I was saying to my kids things like that, let's go to the beach, and they would say no. I would get frustrated, and often if we're frustrated in relation to our children, it often means we're not willing, because when we're really willing for something, frustration is often a sign that we're not actually truly willing. And I would realize that I wasn't willing to go to the beach. They were picking up on that, and that I was feeling frustrated, and rather than going, actually I'm not fully willing. Well, why not? What needs to be attended to in me? Number one, do I actually really want to go, and am I shooting myself? And number two, if I do want to go, what can I do? Go and do a willingness practice to support myself to be actually willing to love what in me is not yet willing to get to willingness.
Yes. And I just have seen that so many times in my own parenting, and that's why I love this work. It's why I love sharing it with other people, because a lot of the time we say, my child's not doing this, and they're arguing, or they're not getting off their screens, and it's them, and it's all, we place so much, the DD culture places so much on the child's needing to change, or it's their fault, but actually, especially with the screens, say for me, checking in with myself, if I've asked my child to say, hop off the screen, or it's time, and parents come in and the child doesn't do it, and then we get frustrated and we say it again and again, and it just kind of doesn't feel great. But actually, when I checked in with my willingness, well, my child was happy watching a TV show. I would actually really love 10 minutes of rest.
Exactly.
Okay, maybe I'll I'll say, yeah, one more episode and I have a sleep, and then I'm resourced, I'm rested, and then I go, am I willing for them to hop off the screens now? Yes. And it's a full body yes. I then say, okay, let's go and do something. And they even just turn it off without me saying anything. And I'm like, wow, when we really listen to our own yeses and nos in our bodies,
yes,
so much changes. And that's one of the biggest, most powerful things I think in this work. Well, actually all of it is, but following our yeses and nos and actually it being congruent with what we're saying, because I don't know, that's often not talked about in parenting and the way we are with our kids, and even in our own everyday lives with our decisions. But we think we should do something. So I'd love your, a bit more of your thoughts around our shoulds and really what does it feel like for our yeses and nos and that congruency.
I love what you said there. And what I love actually want to say is that when you've experienced that with your kids and around screens, is that willingness is contagious. When we're really willing for something to happen, it is contagious. And what again I want to say again, if we're feeling frustrated or we're moving into power over, it tells us that we are not willing. So we're not in our true power. So that's just a sign. Whenever we got that, and it usually means we've connected with some will hurts of our own, where we felt powerless in the past, or we didn't have choice and autonomy, or someone didn't listen to our no, and our child is reminding us of that. They've become our parent or our teacher or our older sibling. We've become the child. So it's a really helpful way to go, I'm not, and people say that and they have lost my power. It's true. We're in will hurts when we're frustrated or powering over someone. And what you're saying, the slug wisdom, the yes, and no, the shoulding, yeah. So guilt is just from the DD culture. Guilt is not an inherent human feeling, which I find really helpful to remember. And again, thank you to MVC, Marshall Rosenberg. I learned so much about this from. Basically, guilt comes from shoulding ourselves into taking action. I should do this, so I feel guilty because I haven't done this yet. So it's a way of coercing ourselves. With the work, we're supporting ourselves to come back into acting from willingness, not self-coercion, which is what we've talked about. And again, that means listening to what we want, what we don't want, what we're willing for, what we're not willing for. And then the other side of guilt is sticking ourselves, so emotional sticks after we've either done something that we didn't want to do, or that we didn't do something we do want to do, or we're telling ourselves we should. So it's a form of punishment. So that's the love hurt. So instead of punishing ourselves, we increasingly come to love, have internal compassionate voices about why we've done what we've done. So basically what we're doing is, should is a way of, it's again a powerful way. The disconnected domination culture is so powerful. We experience shoulds when we're children, we internalize them, we do it to ourselves, and we don't need anyone to do it to us, because we're keeping ourselves in, well, we're not, but that programming, that consciousness. And it reminds me of that thing about elephants. I think it's true, I don't know, but when baby elephants, if you tie a baby elephant up to a stake in the ground, when they're adult, if you just keep that string around their foot, they will believe that they cannot move. And that's what the DD culture does to us. When we're little, it says, you're allowed to do this and you shouldn't do that, and you're a good boy and you're naughty and you should be ashamed of yourself. And we internalize it all and we keep ourselves in check. And then unless we address it, we will pass it down. We will shame and judge others. We will pass that down to our children, which is so painful. Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. It's hard to get free from it, but we can over time increasingly do that.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that's one of the important parts of this is just even recognizing. I had to stop and recognize how many times in a day I was like, I should do this, and I'm like, I should do the dishes now. Actually, I'm exhausted. And I think when I first started working with you, I was like adrenal fatigue, burnt out, tired. I remember very clearly you saying, well, what do you want? What do you need? And I couldn't answer you. I didn't know. I was like, what do what do you mean? I actually was like, what do you mean? What do I need? I've got to do this for my kids, and I have to do this for my kids, and I should do this as a mother, and I should take them to the playground every day because that's what a good mother does. But actually, if I don't go to the playground now for a week, because I'm tired, or I want to read a book or play with my kids in another way, then I don't have any guilt or shame around that anymore. And mother's guilt that so much of today's culture, mainstream culture, is it? I'm not sure, or the disconnected domination culture in terms of that mothering.
Yeah.
Like a mother, should be guilty that she's leaving her child to do her passion or to do her work in the world. And I just don't feel that anymore because of your work.
Yeah, me neither. And again, I think, mothers are so powerful. And again, the DD culture does not want mothers to realize how powerful they are. Again, great. What should we do to them? Oh, we'll implant this guilt when they're little so that they feel guilty all the time. It's a great way of disempowering us.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
But we are on to the we're on to that DD
Amazing.
culture. It's not even a them. It's more of a consciousness. It's like a thing that gets passed down, a form of consciousness.
Yeah, and it's that emergence of a new consciousness that's coming through now, that this paradigm really is so powerful. Thank you. Do you want to say anything more about conversations with life? Because we've sort of you talked about that first, but then I'm just thinking time-wise.
We're going to go on to my podcast next, and you're going to talk about that. But so just maybe a really brief one. That basically, life's constantly talking to us. So that's not only through synchronicities, signs, symptoms, body symptoms, just everything. The car number plate in front of us. You're going to talk about our children as messengers, animals, things that keep happening, just all the stuff that you know about, but it's a two-way conversation. So what we really understand is, and particularly through the love and the will work, that is how we talk to life. So the process is, rather than just occasionally going, oh, that's a nice synchronicity, it's like, what can I do to say to life what I want to say, and to really hear what life is communicating to me, and particularly because if we don't hear what I'm saying, it needs to get louder and louder, and often it gets louder in ways that aren't enjoyable for us, not because it's not loving, but because it wants us, it's inviting us to hear something. This is this sense that basically life is loving and compassionate. These messages from life are not harsh. So it's again freeing ourselves from that DD culture to understand that life unconditionally loves us and wants to support us in our journey. And if we're not willing for something, it cannot do that. If we're not listening to the messages, it cannot do that. So it's sets of, again, practices and processes to be a more conscious collaborator with life, which is again so yummy. And my experience has been from, if I look at each of those things, love, will, and conversations with life. In terms of love, I used to feel full of self-judgment. In terms of will, I felt completely powerless most of the time. In terms of conversations with life, I used to feel so alienated from life and terrified a lot of the time. And now I feel deeply embedded here. I belong here. And that is, what a huge shift.
Amazing. And that is so powerful, the shifts that can happen with this work. And it's not just me. I've known many, many mothers and women and parents that understand. And my husband, who coaches basketball, he's in a sporting arena. And, we did a willingness practice before his grand final, and he loved it. I took him through an hour-long kind of willingness practice of really, what are you willing for? What does it feel like? And it was such a powerful process. He loved it. So this work and these practices can be, adapted and implemented in wherever you are in your life and in your world and in whatever your family situation looks like. I think that's the amazing part. It helps us to connect back into our true essence of being one with everything, rather than so disconnected from our land that we live on and the world around us. I think it's so amazing. Thank you so much. Do you want to just say where can we find you? What,
Thank you. Yes, I have a website, which is marionrose.net, and I'm increasingly going to be sending out emails, so you can sign up for my emails there. And on Facebook, I'm on Marion Rose P.hD, and on Instagram _Marion_Rose_.
Yes, and you have lots of free intro courses and, more information on the Marion Method and immersions and trainings and things as well. So if people want to find out more, I really encourage you to go to Marion's website and have a look. And yeah, if you feel called, do any one of the courses that you offer, because they are all very transformative in parenting and in our lives, really. So thank you so much.
And I do want to say, Shelley, you're going to be an affiliate really soon for my Marion Method courses, so also people can buy them through you. So
yes,
that's coming soon.
Yes,
and do you offer Marion Method sessions? Sessions.
Yes,
mentoring.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I am certified in the Marion Method, which means that I'll be doing more one-to-one work with parents and some courses and little kind of immersions and things where we will go through each of the practices and, the areas and dive a bit deeper and can support you in your parenting and understanding more. So thank you very much. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Shelley. I really enjoyed it, and so much love to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I would love to know your thoughts and feelings and to continue the conversation. You can connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at _ShelleyClark_. If you would like to keep in the loop for all my resources and offerings as they happen, you can join my mailing list at www.shelleyclark.com. Thank you for all you are doing. Your parenting is important and powerful. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.